First of all, great to be with you. As we all know, President Trump has been unequivocal in his vision that it's time to realign the sort of world economy that America has been taken advantage of for too long. The average tariff on American goods is about 15.5%, but the average tariff that we charge in America for goods coming in is about 5%, which of course that gap is not sustainable and no longer okay. So when the president announced in the Rose Garden, and I was there along with most of our cabinet that day, a month or so ago, that we were going to change things, that we were going to enter into mass negotiation with many, many countries around the world. And now we've seen that firsthand. We saw the UK deal, which hit first a couple of weeks ago. I happened to be in London a couple days later, which was really a great trip. But those negotiations continue. I think the next deals will be announced in the coming week or two, with many more to come after that. And I think the team feels very, very, very confident. I'm in Rome. I think you mentioned that in the intro, talking to my counterpart here and many of the great producers here in Italy. I think that my takeaway from my 2 days here, from my 3 or 4 days in the UK a couple of weeks ago, I'm headed to Vietnam, Japan, and India next month, is that the openness and the willingness and just the encouragement that I know my counterparts in the cabinet, the president, we're all receiving from our counterparts around the world is the understanding that things are changing, that we are going to be renegotiating. But at the end of the day, while we're putting America first, but in partnership with great countries like Italy and the UK and other countries around the world to ensure that we're moving forward in a productive way for both sides of the aisle.
You're talking to the Italians, of course, but they have to negotiate through the European Commission, Secretary Rollins as well. I was looking at the list of products that could be subject to tariffs from the Europeans. Tens of pages and a vast number of agricultural products I didn't even know existed, Secretary Rollins as well. Do you honestly think a comprehensive deal with the Europeans could be on the agenda soon?
I do. I think it's really important. I think the negotiations are continuing. I think that there is no better team than Ambassador Greer or Secretary Lutnick or Secretary Bessent. Of course, the negotiator in chief, the real deal maker in all of this is Donald Trump. It's been really fun. Of course, I've worked alongside him. I was in the first White House in the West Wing. It's been really fun to see him lean in such an extraordinary way. It shouldn't be surprising to anyone that knows him, but he is the one who wants to be on the calls. He wants to make the final decision. He's not leaving this to his team. Of course, the team is out front moving on his behalf. But at the end of the day, President Trump is in every single detail of these deals. And I believe that no one can make a deal better than Donald Trump. And so, yes, we will be moving forward with all of these countries, including the EU, on behalf of Italy and the member countries moving forward.
Is it working for American farmers, though, Secretary Rollins, as well? I was looking at a quote from Zippy Duval, who leads the American Farm Bureau Federation, who said, look, we share the administration's goal of leveling the playing field with our international partners, but increased tariffs threaten the economic sustainability of farmers who have lost money on most crops over the past 3 years. Have you got the farmers with you?
Well, I think the farmers, actually, I saw a poll last week that say the farmers are not only at the same level of support that they were when the president was historically elected in November of 2020, but in fact, even more today. And I think that's a really important point. And listen, Zippy's not wrong. Zippy's a friend. Over the 4 years of the Biden administration, we went from a trade surplus in our agriculture products when President Trump left the first time to a trade deficit of $45 billion. That's money directly out of our farmers' pockets. So Zippy's point is this, that because of the Biden administration, our farmers are living, many of our farmers, especially our row croppers, our soy, wheat, corn, are living in very thin margins right now. And so any sort of uncertainty questions those thin margins. But they also all understand that a golden age of prosperity with President Trump leading the way, who has had the farmers back since the first moment he came down that escalator in 2015 in New York, announcing he was running for president, that it is just around the corner. And if there is uncertainty or if there is a gap, that the president will step into that gap. And that is my job. And that's what I'm working every day to do, to represent our great American farmers and ranchers who the president holds in the highest regard and puts first, which has been an incredible blessing to get to do that.
But a $7 billion cut to your budget at the USDA as well. That's going to affect key programs, source water programs, dairy business innovation, direct loans for rural single-family housing, conservation technical assistance. That sounds like a really tough blow for a vast number of American farmers.
Steve, listen, we have a $250 billion budget at the USDA. A $7 billion cut, or whatever it ends up being, that goes directly to the heart of DEI programs, of climate change programs, of you can't imagine the fat that we have uncovered at USDA just in the last 3 months. In fact, the USDA that will emerge from the budget cuts and will emerge from a reorganization will be stronger than ever, will support our farmers and ranchers at a level that they have never been supported before. All we're looking to do is get all the non-ag stuff out of USDA that has nothing to do with food security, that eventually leads to national security for our country and leads to a more prosperous America and putting America first.
Madam Secretary, final question. We've got about a minute left. What's the biggest sticking point in getting a big deal with the EU over the line?
Well, I don't want to speak on behalf of our trade negotiators, but from my perspective, understanding and not using what we believe to be these fake barriers to entry, that has to stop. There are thousands of data points, internationally recognized safety of our products. And so I think there's been some red herrings thrown up from the EU over the years, and it's time that stops. So it's important that we work together. It's important we find a good deal. It's important that we continue to import what the EU does very well. Of course, from Italy, that's wine, that's cheese, that's pasta, it's olive oil. But understanding that the soybeans, the corn, the wheat, et cetera, are coming from America, moving more of that product into the EU to make it more equivocal is our goal.